What's up and welcome back, and today I'm going to be reviewing the new Order of War mode that has hit the Sandbox server for the last couple of days. And right now you see I am on the Sandbox server. The Sandbox server shuts down this Thursday, so if you want to go ahead and test Order of War out, if you already applied, or you can apply now, I think. But go ahead and test this out. It's actually really fun. I have a video on how to install it because there are some problems with it. But yeah, this World Tank Sandbox 1, it's a completely different thing that you have to install into your Wargaming client. But you can only install it if you use the ID that I used in one of my previous videos. But today we are going to be reviewing the new Order of War game mode. And I'm going to be showing you some clips telling you what the strategist uses and stuff like that. And also, a really nice thing that they did with this sandbox is they allowed you to start with all of the tier 10s, excluding some like the EBR 105, Fritzfang 103B, and stuff like that. So they took out some of the wonky tanks just to kind of get get the basics of the mode down so that you could kind of understand it more. And yeah, it's actually been really fun to test and stuff like that. And I'm just going to go ahead and jump into the breakdown. So right now you see the ceasefire is in effect on all servers. Battles will be available in 10 hours. So they're only open in Eastern time. They're only open from 5 to 7 and then 11 to 3. So it's really kind of disappointing to me that Wargaming did this. I wish that they would have at least had the servers open for longer, but I'm not quite sure why they're doing that. Maybe just so they can clear out bugs and stuff, but it makes it really hard for people who that kind of conflicts with their time. It makes it hard for them to test it out, so that's kind of disappointing, but if you can make time for it, then yeah, it's definitely worth testing out. So as you can see here, you can either play as the strategist and you use 7 tanks, or you can use the tanker and you can just play 1 tank. And I'm just going to go ahead and click right here. So this is just a breakdown that Wargaming has. You can watch the video if you want. That's just very basic. But the basics of it is it's a 7v7, and there's 1 strategist, and he gets 7 tanks and he can place them anywhere, and he kind of controls them. Kind of like a third, it's like you have a bird's eye view and you can move your tanks around, and you also complete defensive structures, and you can have like 7 tanks. So my unit is E100, IS7, 60TP, Object 268 version 4, and so on and so forth. But yeah, and it is kind of hard to play as a strategist. I feel like the tanker usually wins, but if you are pretty good as a strategist, then you will win most of the time. As a tanker, it's 7 players that are all smashed together on one team, and it's all of those 7 against the 7 on the strategist's team and his defensive structures. So that's just the very, very, very basics of this game mode. So the tankers, as tankers, the 7 of you will fight against 7 vehicles under the command of 1 strategist. To achieve victory, you have to destroy the strategist's unit or capture their base. So the strategist's base is protected by defensive structures, watchtowers, pillboxes, and artillery batteries. We'll talk about all these later. But the main thing is, if you win as the tanker, it's not necessarily fun to play as a tanker. It's a lot more entertaining to play as the strategist. But the thing is, you need to play the tanker to get intelligence reports. So on the Sandbox test server, you can see right here it's 200. I have 209 intelligence reports. I can only play as a strategist if I have 100. So if I hit battle right now, if it wasn't in ceasefire, then this would go down to 109 intelligence reports. So I would say every win that you get as a tanker, you'll probably get like 13 or 14 intelligence reports. But on a loss, only 8 or 9. But you still do get them for the if you lose. But that's a lot better than what other modes have made you do. But the strategist, let's go ahead and move on, because you're really only going to want to play the tanker if you just want to get the intelligence reports, because that's basically the whole mode. The whole point of this mode is to be the strategist and to experience that, being able to control 7 of those tanks. So right here you see this is the setup that I showed you just a bit earlier. And at the start of the battle, you place all your soldiers. There's certain spots that you can place them on. So like the artillery batteries can go like here, here, or here. That's not actually where they can go, but yeah, that's the basics. But there's only certain spots that you can put them. And then the defensive structures. So the watchtowers, you should be seeing the clips now. The watchtowers, they have a really, really good view range with 500 meters. So these don't actually deal any damage to you unless you like ram them and then somehow you hurt yourself. But basically, they have a lot of view range, 500 meters. They can spot you from a really far distance. They are very, very, very well concealed. You could be like 5 meters away from it and just barely see it if it was in some bushes. But they only do have 9 hit points and no armor, so they'll be taken out from basically one shell from anything. So the point of the watchtowers is the strategist places them in places where they won't be seen, but that they can scout out for enemy troopers. And remember, none of these different structures move. So the pillboxes. So I kind of underestimated the pillboxes. I think everyone did a little bit when they first entered their Order of War game. They only have 270 view range, not very good. Only 115 penetration. Now this is what we all thought the pillbox would just be awful. But the average damage, they do 90 damage a shot, pretty awful. But then they have 25 shells, and it fires like a tier 1, like the Renault Tsu or the Renault FT. If you've played those with the machine gun, that's about how fast it fires. And it only has 1,000 hit points and only 14-second gun reloading time. But the thing is, you can barely pen it with anything other than gold rounds. So it makes it really tough if you need to reload the gold. You were shooting regular rounds, you need to reload the gold to be able to pen the pillbox. And you can switch back to regular rounds because you have the higher shell velocity. Yeah, they just make the whole thing complicated. Heavy tanks, they won't really need to worry about pillboxes. But if a careless medium tank drives up in front of it, it'll destroy it almost instantly. It's insane. But anyway, moving on, the artillery batteries, which are the last one, they have double-barreled artillery batteries. And no, these are not the artillery batteries you're thinking about. Only 350 view range, yeah, nothing big. 800 damage a shot, and 400 penetration. So these aren't going to be the crazy HE, like 50 shell velocity artillery batteries that you're thinking of. These things have pretty quick shells, 400 pen, and 800 damage a shot. So yeah, even the heaviest heavy tanks aren't really going to be safe from these things. And the durability of these is also quite insane, 4,300. But luckily they have very, very little armor, and they can't move and they're huge. So you should be able to farm them down. It's actually quite satisfying to farm these tanks, these structures down, and they give you a lot of that damage that you need to get a lot of intelligence reports. And yeah, they only have 13-second reload time. So I've made the mistake so many times of popping out after they've fired, but do not be deceived by this. They have two guns. So if, let's say they fire, you go out and pop out, and you only have like 5-second reload. If you fire, then you think that, oh yeah, I can just reload and then put another one in. Then bang, 800 damage straight into your tank because they have 2 barrels. They can fire 2 shells, not just 1 shell every 13 seconds, 2 shells like the ST2, and the IS, the Object 703, stuff like that. So controlling your soldiers, this is actually quite complicated, and I'm just going to do the very basics. You can make a square, so let's say I start here and I drag. Every tank in that square will be selected, then I can click, and then they'll all go right there. If I double click on someone, that means that they'll attack that person, and also they'll basically fight anyone that's near them, okay? So it's really easy. They'll do most of the fighting for you, but also you can click the space bar to cancel any of your orders. And another one of the really cool things you can do with your soldiers is if you select one and then click Q, you can go into the tank and control it, and then click Q and come back out, or whatever you want to do. And that actually helps a lot. But you can't actually enter your defensive structures, so just keep that in mind. Yeah, there's some other things that you can do, like spotting runs with an IS-7. Okay, that's pretty hilarious. Or hold down. That's a lot better for an IS-7. I don't think you're going to want to be going Renaissance mode when you're IS-7. But anyway, here's all the controls. I'm not going to go over all of them, but if you want to go in here and look at this, then you can go ahead and do that. And there's only 5 maps. Mountain Pass and Cliff you get on those a lot, and Siegfried Line. I've been on Abbey only twice, and Steps twice too. But yeah, there's not a lot of maps, but these maps work pretty well for this mode. But it is kind of tough because for your first couple rounds on each one, you don't really know which ones are which. Like, you don't really know where, not which ones are which. You don't really know where the structures are going to be placed. You need to play a couple rounds, play as a strategist on that map to get the feeling of where those structures can be placed, or else you might be a faster tank and you run up on a pillbox and then bam, half your hit points gone in 20 seconds. But that's the basics of this mode, and now I'm going to show you a couple gameplays that might further your knowledge of this mode. Okay, so here is an Order of War round as the tanker, and this one is in my IS-7. By the way, you get all the tier 10s. I told you that earlier, but just in case you're just joining us, which you wouldn't be because this isn't a stream. But yeah, you get all the tier 10s. So anyway, and as you can see, I'm loaded with 30 APCR rounds. It is a test server, so you get like 50 million credits. So might as well go through some of those while you play your game. So I'm using my IS-7's mobility to get into a position up here, and I see an artillery battery right there. So just so you know, the defensive structures, once they're spotted, they don't go unspotted like a normal tank. So I put one round into the artillery battery right there, and right here I'm just going to speed it up because this is just one of those moments where you can put shell after shell after shell into the artillery battery. So it's on 2x speed right now. And this player wasn't probably the greatest player because they didn't really send anyone to very many places. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and turn it down to replay speed 1. So what you kind of need to do as the tanker is select a tank that has high damage per minute, because against bots, you really want that damage per minute because you can destroy a lot more things with higher damage per minute than a lower damage per minute, because against bots, they just kind of sit there right like that, and like that artillery battery, and you can just use your insane damage per minute to take them out. And one of the tanks that I do enjoy playing is the K91, which on a regular server is definitely awful. Awful armor, not super mobile, kind of bad gun depression and stuff like that. But in this game mode, it's actually really powerful if you use the correct equipment to get your damage per minute super high. I think I got it to like 3,700, and that thing was just insane against all these bots. And another thing that you want is decent armor, because if you can use your decent armor, then you can block a lot of shells from bots because they don't really aim that well and stuff like that. So you can actually block a really large amount of shells that are shot at you. So that's kind of why I was playing the IS-7. It's kind of mobile. You're also going to want mobility so that you can move around and flank bots and stuff like that. So I decided to go ahead and head behind this rock right here because I'll be able to shoot more stuff from right here. And I already have 4,685 damage. I'm getting onto the other side of this 60 TP, and I do put one shell into him right there, and we're up by 2 kills. And while this might not be the greatest replay that you'll ever see, it was one of my better ones. And you see the watchtower, it only has 90 hit points, so just one shot from basically anything shuts it down quite easily. Okay, so their player, I'm quite sure, is playing their E50M, and he is kind of camping behind that hill. If you see them doing like maneuvers and stuff like that, then they're definitely in that tank, because otherwise they don't really do like defensive maneuvers and stuff like that. So I put another shell into the T110E4 right there, and I'm using the IS-7's quick mobility to be able to peek out and put shells into bots. Another thing you can do with the mobility, if you have it on your tanks, is you can use it to flank around the enemy and kind of dodge their shells, because, well, bots usually take a little longer to fire and they're not as accurate, like right there, how the shell just whizzed past me. And I'm almost up to 7,000 damage, which is pretty good for an Order of War round. And it's quite ironic, we have 3 mouses on our team, and they're from different servers even, but they're just all sticking together into one clump. At least they were for the beginning part of the battle. Fortunately, I don't pen that right there. And as you can see, the armor on the pillbox where I aimed at it for a second there, it's actually some quite substantial armor. So I'm going to see if I can aim at the E50M right here, see how he's rolling back and forth and moving his turret and stuff like that. That tells me that he's the tanker and he's just kind of been camping there the whole game. So now the game is almost secured. If we can just take out one of these last guys without losing anyone, then we should be fine. And you see right there, Against a heavy tank, the pillbox really does nothing. He was at my side and on the back of my turret. He couldn't pen it at all. So you don't need to be too worried about pillboxes if you have some armor. I'm not sure how that shell went all the way up there. A little bit confusing. And this is actually quite funny. We have 1 kill for everyone so far except the UDES 1516. So if he gets this last kill, that could be quite funny. I haven't actually realized that up to this part of the when I'm recording the replay. And now I'm down to only 8 APCR shells. I see that he fired from me there, but I saw the dust fly up once the shell hit the ground, so I knew that I didn't hit him. So now I'm using the IS-7's mobility to move into a good position where I can hopefully be the one to shut him down. And as you can see, my friends are also closing in from behind, and you don't actually need to kill any of the defensive structures to win this game mode. You only need to kill all the enemy tanks, which is why I'm focusing on the E50M instead of going for the cap or for the other the pillboxes and the artillery bunkers and stuff like that. And unfortunately I missed this shell there, and I'm going to be moving into a position. I check if I can auto-aim him because I might be able to pin a shell in. And unfortunately I bounce off his turret, but then the mouse shuts him down. And yeah, that was probably one of my better rounds in Order of War as a tanker. I know it wasn't that entertaining, but now what everybody's waiting for, the strategist gameplay in Order of War. Okay, so here's my strategist gameplay in the Order of War game mode. So right here you can see my loadout. I'm using an E100, K91, a 60 TP, an Object 268 version 4, an Object 430U, and Centurion Action 10, and an Object 261. So right now I'm placing all my different defense structures, and I'm putting a pillbox over here to kind of hold this flank against the lighter vehicles, one in here to harass the heavy tanks. I'm just kind of placing them, trying to get them equally all around the map. And just so you guys know, my E100 and my 60 TP, I have them only with HE rounds, because as a bot, they don't really aim very well, and they can't really pen as much shells as a normal person would. So the tanks that have the better HE pen and better burst radius and high HE damage per shot, I have just using HE. So right now you can see that it's kind of awkward, and I'm only at 50 FPS right now. So if this is pretty glitchy for you, that's just because this is a really tough game mode for your, if you're playing as a strategist, it's tough for your computer to handle it. So just know that if it's kind of glitchy right now, that's just the reason why. So right here, I didn't really know what I was supposed to do. So this is my first and only game as a strategist in this game mode. And as you can see, there's an Object 430, a TVP T50/51, and my medium tanks and artillery battery hammer him pretty good. And as you can see, I finally figured out that you need to tap you need a right click to send your men into the position. So we successfully shut down the TVP 50/51, and we have a CS63 advancing around this flank right here. And I'm going to turn the camera real quick if I can. Oh yeah, and I've selected the 60 TP. I clicked Q, and I'm going to see if I can put a shell into the CS63 right here. But I can't really see him very well, so then I go back out of that mode. And my medium tanks, I'm having them send in over here. And as you can see, I have my SPG over there. I have him sitting at the back of the map, and I believe the Object 261 has the fastest reload of Tier 10 SPGs. And the reason I selected that one is it's a bot, so it can fire a lot more. Well, not the fact that it is a bot, but I want a tank that can fire a lot with my bots, so that or do a lot of damage. Well, maybe not do as much damage unless it's with HE, like on some of my other tanks. So one of the things that kind of makes it kind of glitchy in this mode is you see everything, that all your tanks achievements. So if they take a little bit of damage, it pops up on your screen, and if they do a little bit of damage, it pops up on your screen. If they get a critical hit, it pops up on your screen. So it's kind of stressful, and that also tells you about how bad the FPS is on this mode. And I am able to shut down the STB1 in my Object 268 version 4 right there. and then I exit back out, and I'm winning 3-0 right now, which is kind of rare because I feel like for your first couple of rounds in the strategist, you usually lose a couple pretty drastically, but luckily this one went pretty well at the start. So you can see my Object 261 down here. As soon as it's reloaded, it fires again. That's why I like the Object 261 as my bot player, because he can do a lot of damage over time. And you can see that he's just stunning these people over and over and over right here. So unfortunately my artillery battery is shut down right there. I send my Centurion Action 10 behind that bunker to kind of hold that flank. And then I'm going into my Object 430U right here to see if I can take down this T110E3. I try to put one shell into his cupola, but unfortunately he turns around and shuts me down. And you'll see later that he does do quite a lot of damage in this battle. So then I switch to go into my Object 268 version 4. Now this is probably one of the best tanks to use as for your bots, because it has good armor, it's decently fast, and it has pretty high alpha. And it's pretty much it's an idiot-proof tank. So this is also a very good tank for you to get it right at the start. So my FPS level kind of dropped at this part, but I am able to put a meaty round into the bottom of the WZ-111 5A, and that is the Chinese tier 10. And in the new mode that's coming out, I believe it, not a new mode, but it's new to the NA server, the Team Clash. This is going to be the WZ-111 5A. If you don't have any tier 10s that you can play it with, then you'll get that tank free to use. So unfortunately, he puts one shell into me right there, and I'm trying to push up this flank, maybe that I can smash it between my E100. Oh wait, my E100's dead now, but up to my 60 TP. And I put one shell into the back of the 60 TP's turret. Unfortunately, he just tracks me there. I use my repair kit so that I can come back up and hopefully put a shell in. I block the 60 TP shell, luckily, and then I'm able to put one more shell into the bottom of the WZ-111 5A. Now, since he has a higher rate of fire, he's popping around this corner right here. I'm not sure quite what he's aiming at right there. And am I able to put one into him? No. He gets around the corner right after he fires at me. And I kind of want to come up here, but also the 60 TP could put a shell into me right there. And then the T110E3 also pops up, so I don't want to get hit by him. And I can't really pen him, but unfortunately he does 843 damage. I am able to shut down the WZ-111 5A right there. And I block that shell from the 60 TP, and you can see now that it's turning into a pretty close game. Most of their tanks are all kind of based around this spot. I kind of forgot about my K91, and you might ask why I chose the K91 as one of the bots for this mode. Well, the reason I did was when I was playing as a tanker, it worked really well for me because it had that very high damage per minute, and it was just, against bots, you can really use that damage per minute to really shred their team to pieces. But when I used it on my team, its armor and its speed were kind of lackluster for being a bot, and it didn't really do that well. So I would highly suggest not using the K91. If I got to choose a different one, I would probably have chosen, I don't know, maybe I think I could have put a different medium tank or a light tank in there, maybe even a different heavy. Maybe I would have put the TVP, and then unfortunately the Progetto comes up right here. I'm hoping that he doesn't have all his shells. He ammo racks me, and he does seem to have all his shells. And then he puts one more, but I block that one. But he has a fourth shell, and he does shut me down. So now it is a 3v2 scenario, but one of my tanks is a SPG, so this is quite close. So I turn into my 60 TP, and he hasn't fired at all, actually, in this game, and I'm able to splash the T110E3 for, how much was that? 435 damage in this battle, and that puts him down to 174, so I can basically destroy him with one splash. So the Progetto 65 is kind of retreating, and so I pull up to see if I can put one more into the T110E3, and it looks like I am, but it hits him right in the gun mantlet on the gun, and I only do 148 blocking damage, and that is just pitiful. I could have shut him down quite easily if I would just have if the shell would have just flown a bit higher. But luckily I'm reloaded, and he's coming around the corner. He might, but he's not, and then I pull up, and I'm able to splash him and shut him down. So now the Progetto 65 looks like is going to rush me, and I'm trying to get myself into this corner to see if I might be able to shut him down, if I can block one or two of his shells. And he just rams himself to death on me right here, and that actually felt pretty good to win my first round as the strategist in Order of War. And I haven't played a battle since, so you could say that I'm undefeated as a strategist. This is an odd view, but yeah. Guys, if you like this video, please consider subscribing. If you have any questions about this new game mode, please comment down in the comment section down below, and tell me what you think about it. Does it look fun? Does it look tough? Does it look kind of boring? Tell me what you think in the comment section down below. And one last thing that I want to tell you is that it eats up your credits like crazy. I probably lost like 500,000 credits in that strategist battle that you just watched, even though it was a win. So just know that it eats up your credits, so Wargaming needs to change something about that if they're going to put this into the game. And thanks for watching, we'll see you next time.